members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming today. Now, this is addressed to the Australian media. I know you've come here for a good story, and I'm going to give you one today. I can tell you, this story is as big or even bigger than the Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme in USA. Since this matter is quite complex for me to outline, I'll refer to my notes. I ask that you please bear with me, for this story requires me to weave technology issues, multinational corporations, and organized crime into one understandable story. And plus, it requires me to establish credibility so anyone watching, listening, or reading about this will sit up and take notice of the kind of dangers lurking for inventors and other Australians who produce creative works of any kind. I can say that for over 10 years, I have been investigating the actions of a criminal enterprise at work. And I can inform you that after a careful study of project events and a careful analysis of project documents, I've discovered that an organized crime syndicate has been involved in a premeditated and coordinated attack to steal my novel concept. A concept for enabling an unattended auto surveillance process, a new revolutionary process idea involving wireless monitoring and control of sensors and devices, as apart from the old wired versions in industry use worldwide. A good question at this time is why? What did my proposals for an automated surveillance process have that was so novel and so desirable to organized crime and the multinationals? Well, the answer is very simple. My proposals were for a new form of radio communications, two-way radio communications that could be put into a chip, a microprocessor chip or a microcontroller. Make that chip intelligent and then embed that intelligent chip into any electronic device on Earth from any brand or any manufacturer, and enable those devices to automatically network together and perform auto surveillance. Now, what would one call a new radio communications and wireless networking proposal? Could it be called novel? Could it be called revolutionary? Or could it be called a heap of shit? The only thing I can say is that the world's leading electronic giants, who purported to have created Zigbee, Zwave, and Rf4ce technology solutions, are referring to my radio communications and wireless networking proposals as industry-changing solutions. But enough said here. Let me get back to why we are here today. And that is to hear about the activities of an organized crime syndicate that can be shown to have international connections to the United States of America. A criminal enterprise that worked to ruthlessly rip a good commercial idea from its Australian inventor and rip its economic benefits to my adopted country. And I'm not happy about that. I have to admit, though, that many could be thinking, what the heck does this inventor guy, what the heck does he know about organized crime? So some quick definitions are needed. Quick ones that help relate to my matter. This extract is from Great Britain by Caroline Chibalushi et al. It states, "We define organized crime as a structured or not structured group of two or more people existing for a period of time and acting in concert with the aim of committing one or more serious crimes motivated by politics, religion, race, or financial gain. Now, Kenny and Finkenauer of the Research Institute Chicago Crime Commission states, also essential is that organized crime employs corruption of public officials to assure immunity for its operations. That's a key point. And the Australian Crime Commission states, organized crime continually scans the marketplace for vulnerabilities like disadvantaged inventors and emerging technologies in order to make the greatest profits. It also says some professional advisors are contracted by organized crime groups to facilitate organized crime, and professional intermediaries like solicitors, accountants, financial planners work to obscure obscure beneficial ownership. Understanding these things made me look hard at events surrounding my project and think, how do aspects of organized crime fit my particular scenario? Were there two or more parties? And if so, who were those parties and what were they motivated by? In this case, specific parties were involved in criminal activities to take over ownership of my concept and to intentionally sabotage the patenting and development of the idea. These parties comprised my project partners, prototype makers, a national firm of patent attorneys, the federal government's patent office, yes, the federal government's patent office, the state government's Small Business Development Corporation of Western Australia, and its authorized consultants. There were others too, like key founding members of a California consortium comprising giant multinational corporations that purported to have been established in October 2002, but who I discovered had in fact quietly formed in early 2001, just after the start of my Perth project. Let me show you the Zigbee Alliance press release of 21 October 2002. Then I'll also show you the quietly formed bit. 4 major companies joined forces to forge the Zigbee Alliance. Invensys, Mitsubishi, Motorola, Philips, and other companies create the consortium to drive the development of the Zigbee standard for low-cost, low-power wireless connectivity. I've highlighted some portions so I don't have to read the whole press release to you. On page 2, it is stated, the 4 promoter companies, along with approximately 10 others, other member companies of the alliance, met together for the first time in Monterey, California. This is September 2002. They said, met together for the first time. And they say that the Zigbee Alliance is an association of companies working together to create a very low cost, very low power consumption, two-way wireless communication standard. And this wireless communication solution will be embedded in consumer electronics, home and building automation, industrial controls, PC peripherals, medical sensor applications, toys and games. That's what the Alliance has said in its press release. Now, let's have a look at something else. I've just showed you the announcement of the Zigbee Alliance of its 21st October 2002 establishment date. I have another document at home that states the same thing from the chief of Mitsubishi Electric Corporation worldwide. the same date. Let's have a look at this. I haven't highlighted anything there, but I can try and bring it as big as I can on the screen. You will see it's an article appearing in EE Times by Junko Yoshida, EE Times. It's marked, Americans say 11/09/201. You can probably see it there. San Jose, California. Second paragraph, or I'll just take it back to the first paragraph. It says, Philips of the Netherlands and a team that includes industrial control and home automation companies are working with the IEEE 802.15.4 group on a fresh solution called Zigbee. Under the new coalition, quietly formed earlier this year. That is a key statement. Quietly formed earlier. What year? Early 2001. Because this document is 9th of November 2001. When he says formed earlier this year, he's meaning early 2001. Contradicts the official version of the establishment date of the Zigbee Alliance. And that is a critical matter to keep in mind. Now I should mention that in 2009, I discovered that these purveyors of Zigbee technology formed yet another consortium, the Rf4ce Alliance, to develop and promote a new two-way radio-based solution for interactive remote control units, and claimed their solution for obtaining status messages from devices was not previously possible. It is amazing, but I can tell you that as far back as August 2000, as part of my concept, I communicated the idea for a revolutionary interactive handheld unit that could receive status from devices to a Perth-based prototype manufacturer whose company, Camera Electronic Services, CESCO, was later discovered by me to have business links with Invensys and Eaton, two of the principal founders of the Zigbee Alliance. I'll just open this so you can see a bit clearer. That is the chart that I produced. And you can see on top, the first name given there is the same as in the press release, Invensys. And you see the other names, Mitsubishi, Philips, Motorola, Honeywell, Samsung, Microchip, and RF Monolithics. There's also Mattel Toys, or the giant Mattel company that's using Zigbee for interactive toys. What you won't see is a company called Eaton Corporation, and I have discovered that Invensys and Eaton are two of the principal founders of the Zigbee Consortium. I've since discovered that these giant corporations who claim to have created Zigbee have tried to put out a confusing picture to the public through the media and create a maze of conflicting information. These multinationals have intentionally put out falsehoods about the establishment date of the Zigbee Alliance, falsehoods about the chronology of Zigbee development, and I just want to say that I'm not going to show evidential documents throughout the presentation because it could take 2 days, but I will show a few along the way. They've put out falsehoods about their reason for creating Zigbee and Z-Wave technologies, that is, Zigbee being for light switches and boating safety instead of for home security, and also put out falsehoods about Z-Wave technology as originating for lighting modules instead of being truthful and saying Zigbee and Z-Wave were made for home security, boys and girls. That's it, nothing else. And one more thing, they were stolen from an Australian inventor. Now, the California-based Zigbee Alliance even saw fit to put out absolute nonsense, and I have a document, or more than one, to prove it, that the Zigbee name was derived from the dance of honeybees. And this nonsense coming from the mouth of Bob Heil, chairman of the Zigbee Alliance. I found another document where he told a reporter, "Don't believe everything I say. That was just meant to be a furphy." Now, in this matter today, there were also public officials associated with my project. There was the Commissioner of Patents, the Patent Office and its filing officers, officers of Western Australia's SPDC. They too are public officials. Were these public officials employed by the organized crime network, and did they act corruptly to assure immunity for its operations? Well, it has been said, actions speak louder than words. So I will be showing you some of their actions just a little bit later. I won't get into any great detail, but I will talk about some incidents or events that will help you visualize the disturbing and disrupting aspects that occurred during my project. These incidents will highlight the carefully coordinated nature of the attack. I'll begin now by showing you some of the actions. On 26th August 2000, as inventor, I communicated my concept to Ron Frank of Camera Electronic Services Perth for purposes of obtaining a quote to make prototypes. A short time later, Mr. Frank's company, Sesco, was commissioned by the partnership between Pentessa Developments and myself to manufacture a working prototype as proof of concept of the idea. After accepting the works order and asking for and receiving an upfront deposit, Mr. Frank informs Peter Piano, a director of Pentessa Developments, that he will not make the prototype system. Not make it, because of Alvin Borthwick. Now, normally, I would not show certain materials at a conference like this to prove any points. But this time, for purposes of establishing credibility with you guys, I will show you. That's the hand note. It says, as promised, as if someone had asked him for it. This short note is a without prejudice notification to yourself that I cannot work with your partner Alvin, and when I return from hospital and recover, I will give you a formal report on work done to date and refund some monies to you. It was a second paragraph, it was a mistake to attempt to work with such a person as Mr. Borthwick, and a task that I have not been able to sustain. The data that I gathered will be available to yourself as soon as possible. That is the note from Ron Frank to Peter Piano, who he's never met in his life. And he's known me for 20 years as a professional photographer. A short time later, if you think that's bad, wait for this one. Mr. Frank's company, Sesco, was commissioned by the partnership between Pentessa and myself to manufacture the working prototype system. So after accepting the order and asking for and receiving an upfront deposit, Mr. Frank informs Peter Piano, a director of Pentessa, that he will not make the prototype system. I think I'm repeating myself here. I've made a slight error. Now, a short time later, without my knowledge or consent, after this letter, Mr. Frank's company, Sesco, gets let off its works agreement to make the prototypes by Peter Piano, the builder and construction guy in the foreground of the large image behind me. He's the director of Pentessa Developments. Then Mr. Frank again does something sinister. Considering he was let off his contract to make the prototypes by Peter without my consent or knowledge and is now flying free of his contractual obligations. Mr. Frank telephones Pentesa's law firm, Anthony Torre Monaco, and engages in criminal defamation against me. Not just normal defamation, there are two types, but criminal defamation. He tries to assassinate the inventor's character. In a letter to Pentesa Developments, solicitor, here we hear the word solicitor, Chris Prast of AT&M writes an impeccably structured formal letter to Peter Piano based on a supposedly casual phone call. I will show you the letter because it's important for you to see that. It's just a photocopy, so it's a bit blackened and blurry, but it should do. Let me read from this letter very briefly. It says, attention, Peter Piano there, and there's CP, which I've discovered in Peter Piano's reply to him, is Chris Prast. It's from AT&M barristers and solicitors, on top there you can see, of Fremantle. He says, dear sir, to Peter Piano, don't look at this one here, please ignore that. On the 28th November 2000, somebody called in respect of the matter. This is Chris Prast to Peter Piano. The person identified themselves as Mr. Frank. Somebody called, he said. Somebody identified themselves as Mr. Frank. The person told us the letter is noted. He's talking about some letter that Peter Piano sent Ron Frank. Please control our client. He calls Peter Piano and myself his client. Otherwise, he called the lawyer's client. Otherwise, he'll call the police. He'll call the police there. He will not entertain any more threats, either physical or mentally. He's been put in hospital twice because of Alvin Borthwick. He has a heart condition. He said he was subjected to enraged threats and constant interruption of the job. He had never called even for 10 seconds to start the job. He says he's only working 2 hours a day. For the time being, he's in and out of hospital. And number 5, he said, he will reply to our letter. He proposes to refund some money, not the total. There's been a lot of work done for them, and they have been told about it. At 6.6, he says, Alvin Borthwick fancies himself as a thug and implies mafia connections. He said, we can tell Peter Pentesa, not Peter Piano, Peter Pentesa, he plays a game here. He seems to be the more reasonable one. He's never known this man ever until I decided to make a prototype. Now, coming back to my presentation, I have observed an intriguing and disturbing aspect to this solicitor's letter. I think I should open it again. Because while she said that the person only identified himself as Mr. Frank, one can see Solicitor Prast has in fact miraculously typed the caller's full name over there, Ronald Frank, against the letter's reference. Now I'm just going to say this, that if Mr. Frank did not call the law firm of Anthony Torre Monaco, it would suggest the solicitor had invented a criminal defamation letter scenario in conspiracy with Mr. Frank and Pentesa's directors in order to intimidate me as inventor and cause me to give up my resolve to probe the situation of Mr. Frank not wanting to make the prototype. And I had informed Peter Piano that I would be going to the tax department to see where the upfront deposit went, and I was going to probe the situation further. So here is a letter saying, don't do it, go back to your photography, know the kind of people we are, and what we will do to you, will rattle your bones. By the way, and this is something you might like to bear in mind, that Chris Prast fellow, the solicitor, has left Tory Monaco and joined who? We've heard a lot about her in recent times. Her name is Julia Gillard. If anyone doesn't know, I'm pretty sure everyone knows here, Julia Gillard, the Prime Minister. He's joined Julia Gillard's previous law firm of Slater and Gordon as principal of their Perth office. A man who makes up letters, invents letters. Now you will recall the Australian Crime Commission had stated some professional advisors are contracted by organised crime groups to facilitate organised crime, and others formed an integral part of organised crime networks. You'll also recall professional intermediaries work to obscure beneficial ownership. And speaking of beneficial ownership, makes this an ideal time for me to tell you about actions of Griffith Hack, patent and trademark attorneys right across Australia, the largest patent attorney firm Australia has. This firm can properly be classified, like the definition in organised crime, as professional advisors or intermediaries. Let me tell you this. From the very outset, this specialist firm set out to deceive me as inventor, set out to destroy my inventive concept that had worldwide applications. From the moment I sat in their boardroom and had communicated my idea to Griffith Hack's highly experienced patent attorney and partner, Rf4ce Alliance, he raised his hand high and he said, "Your patent lies in your chip." And when I interjected and said, "Do you mean radio chip?" He said, "Radio chip." And I remember exclaiming, "Oh, my intelligent circuit board. So that's the radio chip." I can tell you, this firm set out to obscure beneficial ownership of my inventive concept. How? By doing this. By forcing my hand as inventor, and I have letters to prove it, to accept joint application status with Pentessa on the patent application as drafted by the firm, even though I told them that my partnership agreement has only my name to receive all patents to be made out in the name of solely Alvin Borthwick and not Alvin Borthwick and Pentessa Developments. Rf4ce Alliance, senior partner of Griffith Hack, says, absolutely not. This firm doesn't do that. They will be made partner with you. Now, in hindsight, knowing now what I didn't know then, and may I say what no trusting Australian inventor would know either, is that Griffith Hack did this to confer joint ownership of the inventor's inventive concept to Pentessa, and in so doing sought to intentionally break the inventor's sole proprietary status in his own concept. It's gone. It's no longer your own. We are clever. In their annual report they say, Griffith Hack, patent attorneys across Australia, we're clever people. That's their statement.